as we now check in with Paul Finebaum, presented by Allstate. And so here we are, midway point of the season. Paul, I can't believe we've already trekked half through this schedule and so many storylines, especially after a huge Saturday. And I think I want to start with how the night ended, because it was a 5-hour game. LSU, Ole Miss, Brian Kelly lives to coach another Saturday. And I think because of schedule and because how it's going, I'm on the side of that could have been Ole Miss's playoff elimination game. Where do you stand?
Yeah, I agree with you, Matt. And playing the schedule game, almost has one game on the schedule that I think will do them in, even assuming they're not done in already, because that Kentucky loss is now looking nasty.
Yeah.
They have to deal with Georgia. That's a win against Georgia, and depending on where Georgia is, but Georgia very likely is going to have to win that game too. So I don't see their path, which gives Lane, far more time to start, doing some voodoo on Billy Napier's career so he can guard a job.
Yeah, it was like I say this about LSU all the time. I come away from them and I watch them play. The defense, as cliche as this is, it was kind of bend, don't break. Every time you were watching, Ole Miss was moving the ball, but yet they weren't able to finish drives. There were some missed kicks. Every time I looked up, Garrett Nussmeier was throwing into triple coverage. Then the next time I look up, it's 4th and 5, and he's hitting a game-tying touchdown. There's such an up-and-down team to watch. But, Paul, it's time to start paying attention to them, because we haven't since the loss to USC.
Yeah, and I know some LSU fans are going to say today, hey, we're just one play away from whatever. No, you're not. I mean, you should have lost to South Carolina game. So it evens out. I mean, that was such a big game for Brian Kelly. And now, he's got some typical road games ahead, but that Alabama game is looming so large in the second weekend in November. And quite frankly, they're in great shape. They have now moved into that upper echelon of the SEC teams because so many others are starting to back up.
Yeah, we look at the beginning of the season, we're sitting there like, who's going to make the 12-team playoff? I mean, we looked at a number of them, and I think that we saw LSU and Ole Miss kind of in the same prism of, hey, they've got enough to get in there with Texas, Georgia. We picked up on Missouri for a minute. I don't know what their future looks like, right? And then Alabama was a team that were like, hey, look, they might have Kalen DeBoer, but they're still Alabama, which is a segue to it, because LSU, you break to their schedule at Arkansas, at A&M, 2 tough road games in a row. Then they've got the Alabama game November 9th, and that brings me to the Crimson Tide, who, again, Paul, like if South Carolina had any semblance of reliable quarterback play, Bama loses 2 weeks in a row. I don't think anybody in Tuscaloosa would have looked at me with the straight face and said, hey, guys, by the way, you're going to go lose to Vanderbilt, and then the following week, you're going to need luck to beat South Carolina.
No, I mean, I was on a plane watching that game, and the responses I was getting from friends and then on social media, Matt, was downright scary. Um, there's a cliche in sports that I abhor, and it's a win is a win. And the reason you say that is in playoff races, it's all that matters. But that game was so costly to Alabama. Because it showed that all the predictable things that we said, Nick Saban on down, didn't come true. Nothing changed. That team was worse. That team is on the brink. And Kalen DeBoer's smile is finally wearing very thin with the Tide faithful. They don't see the coach they thought they saw 2 weeks ago. They see someone who comes off weak, who comes off as a player's slap you on the back type of coach that doesn't really appeal to what Alabama football was built on. And I think Kalen DeBoer's season is definitely on the brink this weekend. We'll get to that later. But the negativity all week long and intensifying was incalculable. And quite frankly, I don't even know where we would have been with a loss. And again, I live in that Alabama world a little bit more than most people.
Yeah.
But 2 weeks in a row, two games that Alabama fans not only wanted to see a great performance, but lost a lot of money on. And it's starting to catch up. And I realize where we are. We're 7 games into Kalen DeBoer's first season. And I was the guy 2 weeks ago that said this team looks almost better coached than what we had seen in the last 2 or 3 years of Nick Saban. But it doesn't anymore. Kane Womack, the defensive coordinator, is now like everybody's least favorite coach in America. And where this season goes is impossible to predict how bad it's about to get.
Yeah, I mean, I sat here, I said it on this show, I said it on your show, Paul Finebaum show on SEC Network. I said, and convincingly, there's closure in the Nick Saban era after the Georgia game. I said, Alabama fans, rest easy. You're going to be just fine, even though Georgia came back and took the lead at that point, once being down 28-0. And so then when you look at those 6 quarters, they were up 14-0 against South Carolina. It is odd how the thing just switched to, and I don't think this is fair to Kalen DeBoer, but it's the job that he took. This stuff isn't happening with Nick Saban.
No.
You're not overlooking Vanderbilt. You're not letting South Carolina back in a game. Jalen Milroe's not throwing the ball away in the end zone and making it a safety, when if he would just held on to it, it would have been forward progress to the 1 or 2. There are just so many things going on right now where you can now, Paul, remember, I thought you saw the difference with DeBoer 2 weeks ago relative to the Nick Saban era. You're seeing it the other way now, and that's not a good thing early on.
And man, I thought last year the Miami meltdown against Georgia Tech was one of the dumbest endings to a game I've ever seen. But had Alabama lost that game, and by the way, they were so close to doing that, I'm not sure I would have ever seen anything like that. I mean, you're sitting there probably seeing the odds percentage, and I mean, things started to happen that you literally couldn't create if the two of us were coming up with a new video game.
Yeah, because look, Lenore Sellers, he's a young quarterback. Shane Beamer we'll see what he's got the rest of the year. But to let that become a game, get the onside kick.
Oh.
I mean, look, Alabama breathed. You survived, but I'm not sure how the rest of the season is going to go. Let me ask you this: the midway point is, because it's an easy jumping off topic. Midway point, is Alabama a playoff team this year?
No. And I say that based on LSU in Baton Rouge, and you can tell I'm avoiding the game this week because I still can't figure it out. Missouri is completely unknown.
Right.
I can't. And I mean, the schedule isn't that difficult, but going to Norman, I mean, that's a kind of a wreck of a team right now, but so is Alabama. And it's really about the LSU game. If you push that, I don't see how the Alabama team I saw yesterday can go to LSU and win. The game in Knoxville against Tennessee, I mean, you have to think Tennessee, but I mean, Tennessee's almost inexplicable to explain as well. But I don't see how this team just doesn't look like a playoff team.